Perfect. Laura, do you want to start? Shall we just start by, introducing yourselves and whatnot, and hopefully we can sort out Zoe's sound in the background.
Sure. Okay, so hello everyone, my name's Laura Graham and I am based in Northampton, which is just in the Midlands if you haven't heard of it. I started my big lunch on my street 4 years ago now, and I've actually got a bit of a video to show you from that first big lunch. So before I do proper introductions, it might be good just to set the scene and hopefully, if technology allows, share this video with you. Is the sound okay for everyone, Lucy? Yeah, okay, grand. So this is me going to attempt to show you my screen, which you should be able to see just shortly. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, excellent. And there's my little face. So I'm just going to hopefully maximize that. Is that maximized now?
Yeah, that's great, Laura.
Cool. Okay, so I'll just a very short video just sets the scene for the big lunch and what we've done in my street. This was from the first year, so we'll have a little chat after this.
I'd been to Eden's community camp, and as I was driving back I decided the next day I was going to handwrite a letter to all my neighbours to say we need to put together some kind of community event. And then I woke up on the Monday morning and that was the day after the Manchester attacks. It just made me think, actually, no, this is exactly the right time to send this letter. Once I sent out the letter, I had 2 people within about half an hour knock on my door and wave the letter at me and say, oh, this is really nice, it's nice to meet you.
I've never met Laura before the first letter, and she was lovely, and it's just been nice to have a neighbour next door that we can actually talk to and depend on if we need anything, and she can depend on us if she needs anything.
I tweeted about the letter and I guess it just kind of got retweeted and retweeted, and I guess on Facebook as well it had quite a good response, so it was quite surprising because it just seemed like something so ordinary for me to do, just to write a letter to my neighbour. I volunteer for Age UK, so I see a lot of social isolation in older people, but that can happen in younger people too. Living alone, I kind of see that myself. So what I want to happen in the street is just that this continues on.
And I hope that we can do something like this again in the future.
I'm proud of the street and the way that everyone's got involved. The whole aim of it was to bring people together, and that's what we've done. And I hope it has a lasting effect where we're all talking to each other and interacting on a daily basis. And I'm hoping that we can take this forward and have this be a lasting legacy for our neighbourhood and our street.
Yay! That always makes me smile when I watch that back. I'm guessing no one can see my screen now and we're all back to normal. Okay, good. Yeah, so just to give you a little bit of background. Sorry, something's still going. Oh dear. Let me just close that because I had another video playing somehow and I don't know how. Okay, yeah, apparently people want to know what the big lunch is and the next video automatically plays, so that's fun. Let me just get rid of that entirely. Okay, good.
The joys of Zoom, eh?
Oh God, if only we were face to face, it's so much easier. But yeah, so that was my first year big lunch. So just to give you a little bit of background, I had lived on my street at that point for 3 years. I didn't know any of my neighbours. It's a town centre street, so it's a mix of terrace houses and blocks of flats, so it's quite difficult. It was very difficult for me at the time to meet people because I don't have children, I don't have that way in to talk to people, and I was working away quite a lot, so travelling and not really seeing people. We don't have front gardens, it's not that kind of vibe where we can all be like, oh, morning. So I got to the point where I found myself moaning about a lack of community and a lack of connection to other people, and went to the Eden Project's community camp, which is an amazing event down in Cornwall. Met lots of inspiring people who had put on big lunches in their communities, and thought, actually, that's probably something I can do. I was very nervous about it, but I thought, you know what, it's doable. It can't be that difficult. when I came back from the community camp, I was really motivated to put this big lunch on, and then literally the news broke about the Manchester Arena attacks, which was just awful. And at the time I thought, maybe I shouldn't even mention this. You know, there's so much going on in the world that people are worried about, and that's difficult. You know, is a party just frivolous? Is it something that I should be doing? But then I saw all the good news stories coming out about people supporting each other, the taxi drivers rallying round, the NHS staff, everyone just doing stuff to support each other. And I figured we shouldn't just be connecting with each other in times of crisis, we should do this all the time. Much like what we're going through right now, to be honest. So I got my felt tip pens out, wrote this handwritten letter, which I'm sure half of my street thought was written by a 12-year-old, sent it through people's doors and said, would you want to do some kind of street party, some kind of event? And like the video says, thankfully, within about half an hour, I had people knocking on my door saying, yeah, this is a great idea. So we put together our first street party, and in the video, that was our street, that was genuinely people having the party. Most of the people had never met each other before. There are residents on the street that have lived here 15 plus years and didn't know anyone. So it was a real opportunity to meet people that we never would have otherwise, and to get to know people on a level that was, you know, it gave us a reason to get to know each other. You know, food is a great excuse. So coming together in that way was really positive, and it's something that we've done every year since then. I'm a huge Big Lunch fan because it really helped me with my own kind of loneliness. I felt very disconnected from my community, and by doing this and setting this up, it has carried on each year. And it's been something that's been really positive for all of us. There's so many good news stories that have come from us doing our first big lunch. You know, all sorts of things from, you know, neighbours getting to know each other who live in the same block, who didn't know each other before. One of my neighbours has an autistic son who really needed some additional help, and actually in the same block that she was living in was a teacher, and they made a connection. And then there was some, you know, some tutoring and stuff that the teacher was able to provide. Just interesting stuff like that that would never have happened had we not had that opportunity to talk. You know, everything from my lovely neighbour Kez, who is now a long suffering neighbour really, who comes around and kills my spiders for me, or removes them anyway, who helps me build cupboards and is basically, you know, my man about the house, because I don't have one. I'm not sure if he's regretting this big lunch scenario or not, but I'm certainly not. That, you know, everything from even in difficult times. So we live in the town centre, and directly opposite our street is a garage, and above the garage is a community theatre. And late one night, you know, I think it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, I heard some sound, I heard a noise, really loud banging, and I went outside and realised somebody was trying to break into the theatre. Within about a minute, up the street comes this big guy, and I'm thinking, oh, who's this? What's going on? I'm trying to stop them breaking in, and then there's somebody else coming up, and I walked up the street, and it was my neighbour's son, and I was just like, oh, thank God, you know, you're here to support me. And if I didn't know who these people were, I might have been more nervous to sort of, and we basically stopped the break-in and called the police and all the rest of it. So, you know, even in really difficult times, it's been a positive thing because we are there to support each other. Interestingly, I had one of my neighbours call me just yesterday, ring me up on the phone. She lost her dad, and her dad was actually in the video, so it's lovely to watch that video again, and he was taking the picture at the end, so that was just so nice to see him. And she unfortunately lost him last year, and you know, it's difficult, and she just rang me for a chat, and she just sort of says, you know, I'm finding it difficult, you know what I'm going through, I just wanted to have a chat about it, you know, I don't know if I can talk to my husband. And it's stuff like that I just think, oh yes, you know, I can help and be there for people in the same way that they can help and be there for me. And it's nothing I've ever done before. Like I lived in flats for 10 years, I've rented, I've never been that person, I've never really been a neighbourly type person. I've always kind of actively avoided it, thinking, oh, I don't want to, like, oh, you know, I don't want to get to know people too much, I don't want them knocking on my doors all the time. But actually it's been, for me, something that has, in no uncertain terms been life-changing. So this is why we're here today, to try and to figure out with you guys how you might run your first lunch if you want to, and to talk about some of the difficulties that you might face and how you might overcome them. So this session is going to be interactive, and I know people's like, oh no, interaction. It'll be fine, trust me. So what we're going to do with this session is I'd like you to ask questions at any point. The chat is open, so if you're not used to Zoom, if you go towards the bottom, you should be able to open the chat box and ask questions as you go along. Lovely Lucy and Hannah are monitoring that for me because I can't do lots of things at once. So if you do have a question, then they'll be able to flag that and we can discuss it as we go along. This session will be, we're going to be breaking out into 2 separate rooms shortly. And what that means is that half of us will go into one room and half of us will go into another, and we're going to be discussing 2 different topics in each of the rooms. I'll be in one of the rooms and Hannah will be in the other one, facilitating the other one with you guys, and we're just going to have a bit of a conversation about some of the things that might potentially stop us from doing our first big lunch. Hopefully come up with some solutions and then come back together to share our information and share our ideas, so that some of the difficulties are kind of worked through together. After that, I'm then going to go through my top tips for a big lunch, so all of the things that I've learned in the last 4 years so that you don't have to make the mistakes that I've made. At the end we'll have a bit of a wrap up and, you know, question and answers and that kind of stuff. So yeah, if there's anything that anyone wants to add or, you know, say at any point, then please do. This is supposed to be fun. It's Saturday. We're not work zooming. We're fun zooming. If anyone needs to step away from their computer at any point, you know, to answer the door, or if you've got dogs or children or whatever running around, please do. You know, you can do whatever you want. And yeah, hopefully we can learn some stuff and inspire you all to put on your first big lunch this year. Are there any questions at this point? Don't forget to unmute if you want to ask a question. No, we're all quiet. Oh, was there a hand up there, Aisling? Oh, there's two hands. Aisling, go for it.
Hi, I had a plan that before COVID came in. I had a plan to do like a kind of like I'm quite interested in play, into generational play activities on our street. I thought it might be quite good, but now I'm kind of stuck what I can actually do. I haven't even sent out invites. Our street is a kind of street that I don't even know everybody's name. It sounds like very similar to your situation. I know the people on both sides of me, but one is an old man who I don't see very much, and the other is a young couple who avoid us because we have kids and they don't. But it's just engaging with people you don't know at this time and asking them to, like, if we have each house, we're a terrace, and each house it's a tiny little yard that you couldn't fit like a deck chair in or anything like that. Like a part of me's going, oh, leave it till next year, but then you don't know what next year's going to be like, because I think our way of living has completely changed. That's why I'm here basically, and I just want to see, like, well, you said you're going to give your top tips earlier, but I just feel like I don't really know where to go at all with this. Like, I saw some of the like leaflets and stuff from the big lunch saying, oh, just even have a cup of tea in your front yard. I don't even know if anyone will come out because of COVID and because we don't really know each other. I think it would have been much easier if I had done it last year. You know, so I'm just really curious to see what other people are thinking of doing. But my situation sounds very like yours. You know, like, you didn't really know anybody. There's like nobody's name, but still people came. So I'm kind of curious to see if everyone has got any ideas to try something, basically, like to get people out when they don't even know each other, and it's hard to have a focus. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And that's exactly why we're doing this session, because you know, I recognise that this isn't a normal year. This isn't easy for anyone. But it's interesting because I was thinking about it the other day, and I thought, you know, is this something people would want to do, or, you know, will people want to get involved in it? And then I was thinking about, actually, there will be people on your street that are now feeling the loneliest they've ever felt in their lives. like literally, and not just older people, everyone is kind of feeling that isolation. So if at any time, now is the most important time to do something, you know, even if it's tiny or, you know, not quite what you expected it to be. This year is the year, you know, it's about supporting people in such an awful time, and you never know. What I've learned is you never know what's going on behind that closed door. You really don't. So, you know, you reaching out to somebody and having the opportunity to do something, whatever that might be, and we'll go into the separate rooms and talk about what that could be, and then come back together. But yeah, I feel genuinely like this year is the most important year to do something.
Okay.
Yes, we will definitely, and your point is very valid, and it's something that we will be discussing in more detail. So, Luce, was there another question, sorry, before we moved on? Somebody had a hand up. No.
I did. Hello. Yeah, really, it was just, I just kind of, are you focusing on the virtual lunch or just, you know, like sitting out on the street and stuff with, you know, it's just because I'm doing it for a work thing. Basically, we've got a project going on in Coventry, and we were just starting to connect the community just before COVID. We hadn't been there very long, and we were just starting to do food sharing events and things, and it was really starting to grow. People were, you know, now it's like stopped us, and so we're trying to get back in there with the flyers next week saying, do you want to join us for a virtual one? So really, I just wanted more information about that, see how we could go ahead with that.
Definitely. So we'll be discussing virtual lunches versus kind of socially distancing as well. So yeah, we will be discussing both. Okay. So you're in the right place.
Thank you.
Great. So just conscious of time and everything. So Lucy, you're the technical whiz. How are we breaking off now into the room?
We're good, we're ready. So everybody should get an invite into one of the 2 rooms, and we're just going to go in there to have a quick discussion. Laura, do you want to just run through what you'd like people to talk about?
Absolutely, yeah. So we've got 2 rooms that are set up. The first room, group 1, we'll call them, is talking about the barriers that you might face to putting on a big lunch this year and how you might overcome them. So exactly the points that you've made, you know, about people being, you know, digitally isolated, how do you connect with people, all of those types of things. So it's really a bit of a brainstorming opportunity. We're not expecting you to have all the answers, and we will facilitate these conversations, so don't worry and panic and think, oh god, that's why I'm here, I don't know. But it will be an opportunity for people to spark ideas off each other. So that's group 1, and then group 2 will be talking about how to engage a diverse group of neighbours, because we can't assume that everyone is exactly like us and is really motivated about this and wants to do it. So it's talking about how we might make sure that everyone is included and what we might need to do to make that happen. So those are the 2 rooms. Lucy, do people get a choice, or are they just kind of potluck?
I've randomly allocated people, but I think if people really do want to swap, they can come back out of the room and I can pop them in the other. But I would say we will follow up with any notes and things that are useful, so you'll be able to hear from both sides, and this recording will be available as well, so you'll get tips from both bits.
Yeah, and also the point of this is we have a discussion in our groups, and then we come back at the end and share our conversation, so nobody's missing out on anything, and it's an opportunity to share ideas, and then even for the other group to say, oh, have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? So yeah, you won't be missing out on anything. It's just, yeah, hopefully you'll get something from either. So yeah, Lucy, if you want to.
Yeah, perfect.
Do your thing.
So you're in these rooms for about 15 minutes, guys, so we'll see you in a bit. Catherine, can you hear me? Catherine? Hello.
Tapped something thinking it would bring everyone with me, but I don't think it does.
I think you've just left your group, Laura.
I think I've just left them and just left them to it. I'm sorry, Anne, you were mid-conversation. I really thought, I was like, oh, something's popped up. This means everyone will just come with me. I'm so sorry, Anne. I'm just,
No, it's fine.
I
was just saying, I think as well is that the older generation, and as I say, I'm using my WI and my bigger contact with WI is, as soon as I start saying anything like, oh, have you got an email address, or are you on Facebook, we've got a group, it's just, they're like, you're always talking about that, well, you just shut up, you know, they do not want to know. But there's the odd one. We've brought the odd one over, but just the odd one.
Yeah. Thank you, Anne. Thanks for everyone in my group. Sorry for just leaving you like that. How rude.
I think we're all back, Laura.
Good, excellent, cool. I can't believe that was 15 minutes. It just went really quick. So it'd be really good to summarise some of the stuff that we talked about. I don't know if there's anyone particularly from your group, Hannah, that would want to do that, or whether you want to, or
any volunteers?
I was like,
No one. All right. So we had a bit of an introduction of like the different kind of streets and different areas we live in. So from quite busy, more urban settings to quite rural settings. And we were just kind of talking about different suggestions that people had so far, and obviously all acknowledging that actually this year, however you spin it, things are more difficult, and we all realize obviously it's very important to do something, but yeah, it's not easy this year. But I think also kind of reflecting on the point that you made earlier about like it can be virtual, it can be in the street. So there's so many different options. It can be something quite small. So we were talking about, you know, like streets where they've done Mexican waves, all just out in front of their yard, and kind of like trying to see what spaces there are that can be used for physical options. I must admit, I really loved Noelle talking to us about her village and the Facebook group that she set up. And I think the point she made about not assuming that elderly doesn't know how to use social media, because she got a lot of people actually picking that up. Got some emergency fund from, I think, the government, you said, right? But also a little bit of local fundraising going on. Noelle, do you want to say a little bit more? Because that was a really beautiful story about what happened.
About the badges. Do I take my badge off again?
Maybe, but I also really liked your ice cream truck.
Ice cream? Yes, please.
Well, we got some money through from, it's actually from a wind farm that's quite local, one of the community wind farm funds. But we haven't actually touched that really, because we've had a lot of local, we set up a GoFundMe page and we've had people donate to that. But we decided that as a treat to the kids in the village last week, that we would ask one of the ice cream sellers to do a run around all of the parks in the village to give free ice cream to the kids. And that just went down a total bomb. And I think it cost us about £95 for a night around, I think, about 300 houses. So it was a really, people loved it. They just loved it. It went down very well. Is that okay, Hannah?
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Anyone else in my group that wants to share anything? Because I definitely missed out some of your points.
Oh, everyone's shy now. it is a bit, yeah, it's a bit scary to talk. Okay, so from my group, does anyone want to share what we discussed?
We'll leave it to you, Laura.
Oh, Anne, you see, Jonathan came off mute.
I was going to say, I don't mind if you want me to.
Yay,
Hello everyone. Yeah, in our group we kind of looked at how to engage with a diverse group of people within our neighbours in our streets, and we kind of focused more on the sort of like older person. That was kind of what came out that we kind of discussed more, but we kind of discussed sort of like older people, different nationalities, and the way people may approach the situation. But again, just going back to the older person, it was kind of like connecting with technology. How can we do that? Some had experiences of finding that very difficult and challenging to get older people connected, not knowing what to do or have no experience of that. And we kind of said that maybe sort of like the run up to a big event, obviously taking time to talk with neighbours. It might be a neighbour discovers their neighbour is an older person, so they can have those discussions and chats to get to know the neighbour and kind of introduce them and kind of show them what to do, how to do it. And we also said about, well, I mentioned about a charity, the name's gone off my radar at the moment, but they actually provide technology for people that don't have technology, and it just isn't a kind of an engagement there. So yeah, so we kind of just looked at those barriers and just kind of how to engage, and it is basically about communication. It is just about talking and just getting to know your neighbours, and I think we would just be surprised at what will come out of those conversations, I think.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you. That was great. Yeah, so our group kind of, when we were talking about a diverse group of neighbours, we recognised that could mean lots of different things. So, you know, people from with different languages, so that might pose a problem. Younger people, older people, you know, all sorts of different barriers. But I think engaging with older people seems to be the one that everyone's kind of most concerned about, because if it is a virtual big lunch that you're doing, how do you make sure that people who are digitally excluded actually sort of get involved? And I think so Jonathan and I both work with Age UK in Northamptonshire, and I think one of the biggest things that we would both say, and just reiterating the point that was made in the other group, is not to assume that older people can't be digitally included, but also thinking about what they really enjoy using. So they love the telephone, love it. So if there's a way of doing kind of a group call or having them on speakerphone, you know, there is obviously in England, we're now able to, and hopefully we'll continue to be able to do small socially distanced gatherings of 6 people. So, you know, maybe this year it means that you have like a mini big lunch with some of the people that aren't interested in Zoom, and then perhaps a bigger one for people who are. And it's really about being flexible. And the more that I've thought about it in preparation for this, there are lots of barriers that we will face this year. But I guess one of the most important things is just talking to people and making sure that we understand what those barriers are, instead of kind of putting an assumption of what they might be before we've actually spoken to people, to make sure. And another good point that the group made is that, I think Anne made the point, is that older people might actually be very very worried about leaving their house. So even if there was kind of a face-to-face version, which is totally, yeah, I can understand that. So again, that's where, you know, if you want to drop a note through the door, or you want to set up a phone call, or, you know, you even want to acknowledge that, okay, you don't want to take part at the moment in a big lunch type of thing, but maybe later in the summer or later in the year, when and if things change, then we can make sure we do something special to include you. So there's having that flexibility, because whilst the big lunch weekend is next weekend, if you can't do it next weekend, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it at all. So you know, don't feel that you have to do it next weekend, otherwise you've missed the boat, because you know, people have different commitments and lives and stuff that comes up. So please feel free to have to kind of work on it now, and even have it later in the year if that's going to suit your community better. And just a couple of things that we didn't really cover, but I think are important to comment on, just to be really conscious of people who may have barriers that you can't see. So there may be, you know, in my street, for example, with my neighbour's son who has autism, so we need to be really conscious of, you know, how the day goes and what kind of noise and environment that we're creating. And so it's those types of barriers that you might not see. But what I would suggest is that you give people the opportunity to privately discuss that with you, so that they can feel like safe in order to talk about anything that they might need to make adjustments about. So if you are leading on this and you are seen as the person who's kind of putting this together, just make people feel comfortable that they can talk to you about anything that they're worried about, because there will be things that you don't know that are happening that could easily then you could make adjustments for. So there are a number of other things that that I kind of thought about before this session, and I'm more than happy to send some very brief notes round after, or, you know, I'll talk to Lucy about how we can sort of get those through, just with a couple of other areas that we haven't really had time to discuss today, which hopefully might be helpful to people. Is that okay for everyone?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're popping some links in the chat, and I'll follow up with some notes for everybody that's registered. But the one that I just popped in there is lots of small ways that you can get involved, so loads of different little ideas for things you can do this year. And as Laura said, it really doesn't have to be a big thing, it's just about connecting to people, and that's so important at the moment. So yeah.
Interestingly, just one kind of quick other thing I wanted to ask people is, are you nervous about having like a Zoom or a digital big lunch with people that you don't know? Are you nervous that it might be a bit awkward?
Yeah,
I see some nods. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and because it's one thing doing a Zoom call for work where you've got a purpose and you've got kind of, you know, it's an hour, or, you know, it's whatever. And I was thinking about this beforehand as well, and I think it would make me nervous if I was doing this for the first time. So some of the stuff that I thought about that might help is perhaps setting a time frame for your virtual lunch. So, you know, if you decide it's going to be like 45 minutes or an hour, like, so that people know that they can exit and not feel like, oh, I've got to try and make an excuse to leave, like, how do I get out of this? And also maybe thinking about some activities that you could do to break the ice. So, you know, talking about some of the stuff you've achieved during lockdown, you know, maybe showing people, you know, what upcycling you've done, or decorating or baking, and just having something there where you've got a discussion point, because it could potentially be a bit like, oh, how do we do this, and who talks, and especially if you've got a large group. So thinking about a bit of structure, whilst the big lunch isn't really about kind of organised fun and making it like, you know, planning the hell out of it, but it might be helpful if you're doing it virtually to think of some kind of format that people can follow. It just makes them feel a bit more comfortable that they know when to talk and when to input, and they know when they can leave. So that's something to think about. Yes, Anne, go for it.
Are Eden Project hosting an online big lunch themselves that we can join?
There will be some things, Anne, top secret.
All right.
No, it's all right. There will be, I'm sure I'm allowed to say, there will be some things that we're doing. Yeah, we haven't spoken too much about them because we would like people to, you know, do their own things in their own communities. But yes, there will be stuff you can join in with, and that will all be up on our Facebook.
I think that would then encourage other people to maybe go out and try it afterwards. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Or even if people who are having a big lunch sent in their videos or images and what they did and how it went down. And then, like what Laura said, is if you're thinking about doing it at the end of lockdown, maybe back end of August, September, October, then that would encourage people to think, oh, that was a good idea, or she did it like that, or he did this. And then other people would be more encouraged to have a go then.
Absolutely. And I think I've got a kind of slightly similar situation to the one Laura was describing earlier. I live in a village in Cornwall, and I posted in one of the COVID response groups about the big lunch going ahead virtually this year, and then said, does anybody want to organise a proper big lunch for when we're out of lockdown? And a few people have got back to me. So actually next weekend, one of the things that I might do is set up a call or a distant thing with a couple of those people and use that as the way to break the ice, so that we're talking about the future thing, and yeah, like Laura said, have a bit of a sort of purpose, so it doesn't feel awkward and it doesn't feel like there's nothing to talk about. So yeah, it's important that you can just join in whenever you want. Like if next weekend is too close or not right for your community, just do it at a later date.
Fab.
I feel like you should join our team then. You've got the exact same suggestions as that we've been working on.
Anne's keeping very quiet.
I was just saying, until 3 weeks ago, I'd never even heard of the big lunch. And I don't think anybody in County Durham's ever heard of the Eden Project. Well, I mean, it's a long way away from County Durham to Cornwall. So, yeah, if I was to say to somebody, have you heard of the Eden Project? They'd be like, no, never heard of it. So it just goes to show that there is that big divide still. So yeah, we have a place here locally called Eden Camp, which is like an old military camp, and I think people would think it was some connection to that. They'll be going, oh yeah, I've been to Eden Camp, I'll come with you. It's just down the road. Yeah, 600 mile down the road.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything else that that anyone else wants to add, just based on the conversations that we had in our separate groups? Any really important points that you think were made? No? Okay. Okay, well, thank you so much for kind of sharing. I know we had a very short period of time to talk about some of this stuff, and I think we could probably explore it in even more detail. But like I say, Lucy's sending links round. I'll put some notes that can be sent round as well. But if anyone does have any specific questions after this that you think, oh God, I really wish I'd asked that, or oh, now I'm getting into the nitty gritty of it, I really need a bit of help, then obviously just reach out, you know, contact Eden in the first instance, or, you know, and Lucy can link me in, and we're more than happy to help support you. Zoe, have you got your hand up, or are you just thumbs upping? I can't tell.
I think Zoe's just thumbs upping.
Okay, I saw a little hand, I was like...
Just really quickly, one of the things that I will send a link to is we've set up a new Facebook group recently called Our Community, and anybody is welcome to join that, and that's kind of specifically for big lunch stuff. So there's a mix of sort of old hat big lunches, people like Laura that have done it many times and are experts, and people that are new to it as well. So there's a couple of hundred people in there already, so that's a really, really good place to kind of pose questions and ask for tips and tricks from people in the network. So we'll share that as well.
Cool, thank you. Okay, so I'm just conscious of time, and so I guess at this point it would be good to move on to, I guess, my top tips if everyone's still interested in hearing. So I'm going to share hopefully share some PowerPoint slides with you. This is not death by PowerPoint, so don't worry, but it's just hopefully gives you a little bit of visual aid. I hope I'm going to do this right. Can you see my screen? Yay! Okay, so I can't see all of your faces now. In fact, I can only see sort of 4 of you. So Lucy and Hannah, just please, or people, just come off mute if you've got questions as we go along. There will be an opportunity at the end if you want to store them up and ask questions, and absolutely that's totally fine as well. But yeah, so I'm just going to run through, and Lucy, if you can keep me on time track as well, because I will waffle.
Sure.
Thanks. Cool, so we're going to run through some top tips. So you can see, first of all, this lovely picture I just want to focus on for a second, which is my street from last year. And this is probably only half of the people that came through for the big lunch last year. It was a big lunch, and we had lots of different people. In fact, we had people from, you know, streets that aren't actually our street, which was lovely, because for the first time, although we do put posters up every year and we do say everyone's welcome, we normally just get our street, whereas last year it was lots of different people. And I had there was a nice story of a lady who bought who lives around the corner and brought one of her friends along, who actually doesn't live in the neighbourhood at all, but would otherwise have spent the day on her own. So I just thought, yay, that's what it's all about. The more the merrier, come along. And we had such a lovely time. And you can see that we actually do it on our street. It's not a glamorous street. There are no beautiful green trees or front gardens. You know, we are town centre, but we love it. And we have the bunting out and we have the gazebo, but that, like I say, that's probably about half of the people that came last year, which was really lovely to see. So, oh God, will this let me move on now? That's the question. Yes, it does. Yay. So let's talk about the big lunch this year, because it is going to be very different to how you would normally run it. First thing I would say is it doesn't need to be big. So I feel like sometimes it's false advertising here. You know, it could be the little lunch or the tiny lunch. So don't worry about having a huge group of people together. If you get 2 or 3 people, or like if you're able to in your region, you're allowed to, and the rules say that you can do a socially distanced big lunch, then that's absolutely fine as well. But it takes the first person to make it happen. It just takes somebody to kind of stick their head above the parapet and say, yeah, I want to do it. And what you'll find is that everyone else in your neighbourhood or on your street would be like, oh, I wish we did this like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So it's just about being that brave person that kind of instigates it, especially this year when we know it's going to be a bit tricky. But like I said earlier, this is the most important year to do something, because it's really about supporting people and bringing people together in a time when we need each other. But you know, don't feel like you have to do it all yourself. So please do get help. So I didn't know anyone on my street, and I handwrote a letter and posted it through doors and asked people to come and sort of help me organise it, because I knew I wouldn't be able to do it on my own. So don't feel like it's all on your head, and do ask people to get involved. And that in itself is a way of getting to know your neighbours. And, you know, even if it is something small this year, it means that you can, you know, build those connections with people who will then hopefully help you do something bigger next year. So promote what you're doing. So try and let people know. So notes through doors, posters on the street, obviously Facebook groups if people are digitally inclined and want to join the group, WhatsApp groups, phone calls, emails, texts, however people want and feel comfortable with communication. You may have to do a variety of different types of communication with people, but let them know it's happening. And remember that this year is the first of many, so it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be huge, or, you know, it doesn't have to be what it would normally be. But even if it's a small half an hour Zoom call, or a group, you know, a group phone call with some older neighbours, or even a variety of little events. Whatever it is, it'll work. So just be brave. So that's kind of this year, which we can come back to at the end with any questions. But I wanted also to focus on kind of next year and looking forward to how you would run a big lunch in real life. Hopefully we'll be back to whatever normality is. So I wanted to just run through some stuff to think about if you are doing in the future a traditional face-to-face big lunch. So there is kind of legal stuff to think about. You don't have to have your big lunch on your street or on your road, but if you did want to, you do have to apply for road closure to the council. You can actually have your big lunch in a community centre, you could have it in somebody's back garden, you could have it in a park, whatever is easiest for you. We like to have ours in our street, and it's lovely to see the kids actually playing out in the street because they wouldn't normally. But that does involve an application. For us in Northamptonshire, it doesn't cost me anything to do, but there are costs depending on where you are and which council that you're dealing with. You can get support from your council, so your local councillors will have community funds that they can allocate to events. We get about £150 from our borough council to support us with things like food and drink and stuff. So do look up your local councillor and see if they've got even a tiny amount to help you with that. Think about photos. So we all have these amazing mobile phones that are out all the time, and we'll be taking pictures and videos and posting it to Instagram or, you know, whatever social media you use. But just check that people are actually happy for you to do that before you start posting pictures of groups. This is Kez, by the way, my long-suffering neighbour who helps me with spiders and things. Such an angel. But yeah, just make sure you either put a poster up or in your planning, talk about how you're going to make sure that people are comfortable and know that, you know, there'll be photos taken. Also think about food. So there are dietary requirements that people might have that you don't even know about, you know, making sure that you've got vegetarian options, and just being conscious that not everyone can eat certain foods. Please ask people, you know, to let you know and to bring their own sort of specialist food, but always make sure that there's at least a veggie option so people don't feel excluded. A risk assessment. Now, full disclosure, I've never done a risk assessment on our big lunches. Lucy will probably tell me off. But you might want to do that. So, you know, thinking about some of the risks that you might see depending on where you're holding your big lunch. Ours are obviously on our street, so we ask everyone to move their cars. So there is the risk of, you know, people's cars getting damaged by the kids playing. But what we do is we make sure that when we're writing, because each year we write a little, we're having a party again, we do say that everyone leaves their car at their own risks. So just being conscious of making sure that everyone is as safe as possible. And there are resources on if you go to thebiglunch.com, there are resources there. Just general health and safety. Obviously, there'll be children playing, there'll be food, maybe a barbecue, there'll be potentially music and wires and kind of stuff everywhere. So just be careful and make sure that you've thought about how you set up your big lunch in a way that everyone is as safe as possible. And public liability insurance, again, full disclosure, we've never had that for our street parties. Because we've decided as a group of neighbours, this isn't essentially a public event, although we are inviting anyone who wants to come. So we've decided, we've always took the decision that we don't need insurance. However, it depends how big your lunch is, it depends who you're inviting. I mean, if you want to be prudent, I would suggest that you do get insurance just to cover any eventualities. We haven't yet. And child safety. So you have such a lovely vibe on a street party. You know, the kids are running around and people are talking to each other and there's music and it's the sun shining and it's just so lovely that you can often forget about the children. So please make sure that parents still take full responsibility for their children during the party, and that even if they're running around and stuff, that they are really conscious that the parents are responsible for the safety of the children, and just make that really clear. So that's kind of legal stuff. How am I doing for time, Lucy? Okay, I'll whiz through. So now timelines. So for a traditional big lunch, if you are looking for street closures, I would suggest that you do that at least 12 weeks in advance. So there are things that you'll need to set up. So your road closure application, if you do want any funding from the council, because that takes a while to come through if they have any at all. If you are looking to do any fundraising to help cover the cost of things like food and drinks and all that kind of stuff, then start early. And I would suggest that you need to agree a date in advance and make sure you've got your team. So I would say 12 weeks is where you want to start at if you're doing a traditional face-to-face in your street big lunch. I have done it with less time, but you know, if you don't want to stress yourself out, I'd suggest that. Then 8 weeks in, and I'm just gonna have to move your faces, there we go. 8 weeks in is when you start getting you definitely need to get your invites out and start promoting it. I mean, this isn't hard and fast, so you can do it earlier if you want to, but at least 8 weeks in advance, because people have summer holidays, or they have trips, or they have weddings, or they have all sorts of things that start popping in the diary. So just make sure people have allocated that time, and that you think about, you know, if you're going to put any games on, like we did like a treasure hunt, and we've done all sorts of different things, so, and they just take a little bit of organisation. And then 4 weeks in advance of your big lunch, I'd start thinking about putting posters up in the street, laminate them so they don't end up being rained on, which is again a mistake that I made. Think about what music you might want to have there, and decorations. You'll see some bunting behind me. We love a bit of bunting for the big lunch, but if that's not your vibe, then you know, maybe it's about balloons or it's about flowers, I don't know. So just start thinking about how you might want to make your big lunch look and feel nice. And then 2 weeks in advance, I would do a reminder note to everyone through the door, just to remind them that it's happening, that they need to move their cars if you are doing it on your street, because people forget. And also think about weather, and whether you'll need gazebos or whether it's likely to rain. Just start thinking about that as a backup. And then 1 week in advance, obviously you're looking at getting your food and drink if you're doing a barbecue or anything like that, making sure that you're getting that set up. And then on the day itself, spend some time for a litter pick, because that's something that I forgot. And 1 year we kind of looked out and we just thought, oh my goodness, where's all this litter come from? And I had to desperately run around and do a litter pick. So make sure you allocate some time for that. Make sure you allocate some time for knocking on doors and reminding people to move their cars. I don't know why it's so hard.
Laura, we had a specific question in the chat about how your neighbours actually reacted after you asked them to move the cars, especially in places where parking might be a bit of an issue already.
Right, that's a really good question, and I live on a parking permitted street, so parking in our neighbourhood is an absolute nightmare, and it's just really, it's tricky to park anyway on a normal day. And not everyone moves their cars, if I'm honest, but what we have managed to do is make sure that people move them to either end of the street. So for the people who don't completely, you know, move, at least we've got some space clear in the centre where we can hold our big lunch. I mean, for the people taking part, they're fine. For the people who don't take part, and there will be people who aren't interested in taking part, they are a little bit like, oh, do I have to? But because so many people are doing it and so many people are interested in this big lunch, they don't want to be the neighbours that ruin the party for everyone. So they do it. And we do make sure we stick to the time frame. So we say that the street will be closed between, you know, 11 and 6, for example, and we make sure that we stick to that time. So even if we're having a great time and we want the party to continue, we open the street back up when we've said that we will, because it's just not fair for other people to kind of, you know, if they're expecting to be able to park again, then that's when they should park. Is that okay? Cool. So yeah, cars, bunting, make sure you put some time aside to put bunting up. It really takes time, like who knew, but it really does. And Lucy's smiling because she knows only too well how much time it takes, especially if you've just rammed it into like a box from the previous year and not put it away nicely. It's like getting the Christmas lights out. Ugh.
We use it as we use bunting folding as an initiation for people that start in our team. arts, definitely.
I think we had a bunting folding race at one of the times I was at Eden, and I'd like to say that I won because I feel like I'm just really experienced at it at this stage. But anyway, toilets. So something to consider if you're having your big lunch on your street and you're opening it up widely. What are you going to do about people needing the loo? We actually are really lucky because we've got a community centre right at the end of our street, so we make an arrangement with them that we can use their toilets, so at least there's some public toilet facility. But you might want to think about that. I mean, do you want people that you've just met to use your toilet in your house? If so, how are you going to manage that? And security as well. So because you're going in and out all the time, you're picking stuff up, you're taking stuff out the fridge, it's thinking about remembering to lock your door and just keeping secure, because I get very trusting. I'm like, oh, it's fine, then I leave my door wide open, and actually it's just about being, just thinking things through a little bit. And packing down as well. So like I mentioned, make sure that you close your street again if you are doing it on your street at the time that you've agreed. But packing down, people seem to disappear after the party and they're like, oh, we've had such a lovely time, bye everyone. You're like, no, everyone needs the help. So set their expectation from the get-go that actually the people who help set up, other people need to help pack down as well, and make sure that everyone is clear on that, so that you're not there trying to sort out, a party that 60 people have had. So, any questions?
We had another one coming in the chat. And
Yeah.
do you want to ask that yourself, or shall I relay it for you?
I can't see everyone, so
All
I don't
right.
know.
I'll take it for you. I'll pass it on. It's a question around funding.
Yes.
And in your experience, whether when you ask councils for funding, whether you have to have like a committee or be an organized group enable to get the funding, to get access to it.
Very good point. Thank you for raising that. So we don't have a community group set up. We're not. We don't have a constitution or anything like that. The stipulation that the council gave to us, though, is that it goes into a bank account that isn't a personal bank account. So the first year that we got our money, one of our neighbours has a business, so it went into their business account. And then I think last year when they allocated us money, I do have a community group with a different hat on, so it went into the community group account. So the banking side of it is a bit troublesome, but for the last 3 years we haven't had anything formal set up. But we know I know our borough council quite well, and they see what I'm doing, they see the party, they know it. So I don't know if it means that that's easier for me. I don't know. I'm fairly sure that a lot of the community trust, like the community funds that the councillors have, they'll be more than aware that not everyone has set up a community group. So you just might want to talk to them about how best to do that. But they are there to try and, they want to give you the money, so they will hopefully find ways to work around that. Any other questions? I don't know what I've done. I'm going to stop sharing. Oh, I can see you all again. Yay. So that was a real whistle-stop tour of top tips for big lunches. I know that specifically focused quite a lot on a normal traditional face-to-face big lunch. But because there is so much involved in it, I thought it was really important that you still understand how you would do it next year, or even later in the summer if we're allowed to. And in terms of the kind of logistics for a virtual big lunch, it is a lot easier because it's about somebody knowing how to set up Zoom essentially, and emailing out invites. So there isn't quite as much in the same way of organisation as there would be for a normal big lunch. Any other questions?
I was just going to say, Laura's example there is like an amazing proper big street party, but at any time, whether it's virtual or not virtual, it can be any size. So if that feels really overwhelming or out of reach or whatever, or like something you'd like to do but don't feel like you could do even next year, don't worry, start small. Like, it doesn't ever have to be a big street party thing. It can always just be you know, a cuppa with your neighbours or whatever. It's about connecting people, so it's just whatever suits. And if you're part of a community group already, maybe it's just that over the big lunch weekend you guys will get together and have lunch in normal non-COVID times. So there's loads of different ways to do it, and it doesn't have to be the big party, but if you want to do that, amazing.
Definitely. Anne, go for it.
I'm just thinking that now is probably a good time to make those connections, because people have just stopped clapping for carers and they've already been out in their street and they've had that odd conversation and that odd wave to the person over the road that they've never seen for 25 years. So now is that time to maybe make that next little step to make those connections and starting, you know, grow communities again. So I think actually now is the right time to do it, and not wait and say let's do it at the end of lockdown, because those little connections have started to happen. So yeah, I think now is a good time.
I agree, and I'm a little bit of a statistics nerd sometimes, and we actually just did a little bit, Lucy starts laughing when I say this, we did a little bit of a survey a while ago, and we found out, you know, you hear all of these lovely stories of people actually feeling more closer to their neighbors, but we also asked, and actually like the majority of people, I think it was 70% people in the UK also say they really want to hold on to this sense of community. Yeah. And I think that's actually why I agree with you. Like, it is about now making those connections and making sure that this lasts, even when we are not clapping anymore, or even when we are all allowed to go outside again at some point.
Yeah, fab.
And people are at home, you know, they've got the time to think about it. They've got the headspace. You know, it's really stressful for everyone. So having something a little bit lighthearted, a bit fun to focus on, something a bit different, you know, with a group of people, because, you know, I feel a little bit zoomed out with my friends and family at the moment. I don't really have much more to say to add to them, you know, every time we're doing something. But, you know, a new bunch of neighbours, just new conversations, getting to know new people and hearing about what they've been doing and talking about how difficult homeschooling has been, or, you know, whatever. It's just, it's something different, and definitely people are in need of this and want it. And it just, like I said earlier, it just takes one person to be that catalyst to start it. And then, you know, it's really surprising how the momentum builds, and don't feel like it's just all going to be on you all the time, because I think, Anne, that was one of your points, is that, you know, God, I'm always arranging things, it's always me, why can't someone else do it, why do I have to do it? But
and also, like what you said, is people aren't going anywhere. You know, they've got no weddings to go to at the weekend. They've got no day trips out. They've got no this. So they are about. They haven't got that, for want of a word, excuse to say, oh, I'm busy. They are around. So kind of capitalise on the fact that they are about, so that then next year they'll kind of go, oh, you know what, I enjoyed that. I'm going to put that date in my diary for a future year. So yeah, it'd be really good.
Definitely.
Laura, do you mind if I really quickly just share my screen and show you people one of the resources that we've got? Is that all right?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I've not rehearsed this bit. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
As if by magic. Okay, so there's loads and loads of stuff on thebiglunch.com, and normally, for people that haven't done it before, we have a physical pack that has everything that you need in it. It's got posters and it's got invites and it's got tips and whatever. But at the moment, we've got downloadable versions of that. So yeah, thebiglunch.com has got digital pack as such. And there's heaps of resources and stuff on there, but this is a really nice one. So this is just ways you can join in with the big virtual lunch this year. And there's loads of really simple little things. So whether it's just about kind of encouraging that community spirit and making people feel part of a bigger thing, as opposed to, you know, if you can't get together in your garden with people, or if your neighbours are a bit worried about coming out, there's nice stuff like this one. Use an old roll of wallpaper or old sheet to make a street sign or a banner. So it's just things that encourage that kind of community spirit.
Sorry.
I didn't catch that, sorry. Someone asking a question. not sure, I'll carry on. And then just yeah, there's just a few more things. We've got resources online so that you could make a piece of bunting, and you could post, if you can print them out, you could post those through people's doors, and everybody could make a little pennant, the triangle, and then you could make a line of bunting for your street. So just, you know, nice little tips and tricks for ways you can kind of get involved and sort of share that community spirit at the moment. So I will share a link to that again, and as I said, we'll send notes with follow-ups, but that's just a nice kind of, I think, entry level way you can get involved this year especially.
That's ace. Thanks, Lucy.
No.
So I'm conscious that I've just talked at you for like however long. Does anyone have anything that they want to pick up on, especially if we're focusing on this year? So I know I covered quite a lot on next year. What about this year? Any particular questions just to kind of wrap up?
Has it ever rained when you've had your big lunch, Laura?
Yes. So year one, you probably saw from the video that it looked a bit windy in year one. So it was really the weather was really bad, and we put the gazebos up, and at one point we all had to hold on to the gazebos because they were literally flying away. And some of my neighbours were like, oh, I don't think we should do it. And I was like, no, we're going to, come on. And we did it. And actually, by the end of the day, the skies had cleared and it was glorious sunshine. So I'm really glad that we kind of stuck to our guns. Luckily, we haven't been completely washed out, like rained out. But we do have that community centre on our street, luckily. So we kind of have that as a backup, although we haven't had to use it yet. But I am conscious that one year it will really rain, and we've got to, we each year we talk about it and we just kind of, we're like, it'll be all right, it'll be fine. But luckily every year the weather's been okay. But that definitely is something to consider, because nobody likes to go out when it's windy and rainy. So maybe having a backup plan, or, you know, picking a even if you can't do it on the first weekend of June for any reason, picking a point that you know the weather should be okay. You know, the further you get into September and October, the more risky it becomes. So just, yeah, the latest we have ours is August. So that's the kind of latest we go for.
I think Zoe's raised her hand as well. Have you got a question, Zoe?
Oh, you'll need to unmute, Zoe, I can't hear you.
About the bunting, is there a competition or?
No, not a competition, unless you want to have a competition. You could do one locally, who's got the best design or whatever you want to do. But no, it's not a competition. No, it's just something you can download, and it's just a nice way to get people involved.
Have you got any designs for the banners to be?
No, again, that's just whatever you guys would want to do. So it's supposed to be just really simple ideas with stuff potentially you can either print or things you could use at home. So if you've got like an old roll of wallpaper, you could use the back of that. It's that kind of thing, you know, just stuff that, like Laura says, does not have to be perfect, just nice and interactive for people, and something that they can feel part of, really.
Okay. Yeah, we did at one of our big lunches. So Sim, who was in the video, who doesn't live on the street anymore. Sim's an incredible artist, and she drew a tree, and then we all did like thumbprints on the tree. And then another year she did some kind of artwork, but I don't know where that's gone to. It was in her window for a while, so the street could see the artwork that we'd all contributed to, but I think she's taken it with her now. But that kind of activity is really fun because it gets the kids involved, and also it's just fun for the adults. Let's not forget that we all love playing, and we don't play enough, I think. So yeah, anything that you can incorporate that's a bit silly. Like we got the chalk out and did hopscotch, and it was all of the adults that were way into it, like way more than the kids. The kids were like, what are you doing? And we were like, oh my god, hopscotch! Just really weird stuff like that. So so yeah, get your hula hoops out, or you know, whatever. Cool. So any other questions?
I had a.
Yeah, go for it, Zoe.
I had another one about because I did the rainbows and the keep safe thing for this year for the virus thing. So help support the key workers, so, and the rainbows. So I might do that again to do it for that. And also we are club leaders, so we do activities on a Tuesday night when we get back. So hopefully we'll go back and do some like club events for that. So we'll have our own one here, and then maybe we'll have a club one when we go back after the virus.
That's good. And just for anyone who didn't catch that, so Zoe's a cub leader, so Zoe will be doing some cub events. And that's another thing to point out, actually. Your big lunch doesn't just have to be your neighbourhood. So like Jonathan will remember, Age UK did a big lunch for the staff. I think it was about maybe 2 years ago. So you might want to do one at work, you might want to do one with your community group, with your Women's Institute, with your Cubs, with, you know, anything, your swimming group, your running group, anything that you're involved in already. If you feel like that's, you know, that's something that you could benefit from as well. I mean, the beauty of the big lunch with your neighbours is that you're bringing connection to your street and your neighbourhood, which might not be there already. So I wouldn't say don't do it in your street, please do. But if you wanted to do additional big lunches or something different with your existing community groups, then that's absolutely brilliant as well, and definitely do that. Lucy, did you want to?
I was just going to mention something really quickly as well. You can use your big lunch as a fundraiser. So the big lunch in itself is not a fundraiser. You're not fundraising for us, but in your neighbourhood, or like Laura just said, if you did do it with a group, you could use that as a fundraiser. So something like, oh, Hannah, am I going to get this right? There's a big number, millions of pounds. 8 million, is that right? Yes, great. Something like £8 million raised on average, or raised last year with the big lunches? On average?
No, last year.
Last year, okay, great, I'm glad she's here. Yeah, so that's just people in their own community groups using their own big lunch as a fundraiser. So say you wanted to do one for your kids' school or something, you could do that. So that's another angle for it too, which is really good.
Zoe, have you got your hand up again?
No.
No. Any other questions? No. Okay. Well, I can't tell from your faces whether you're looking inspired, slightly scared, terrified. I don't know. So let's just do a quick wrap up. So raise of physical hands. Who thinks they might do a big lunch this year? Yeah. Yay. Oh, that's ace. I'd love to know how you get on with your big lunches, and you know how you navigate this strange time that we're in. So please do share your stories. Lucy, what's the best way for people to share stuff? Can they sort of tag Eden Communities in or something?
Yeah, so at Eden Communities on social, lots of different social channels. People can email me. They've got my email address for any questions, and that Our Community Facebook group is a really good one, as I said before. So lots of people that have different levels of experience with the big lunch for any questions and tips and things. Yeah.
Also to point out, maybe for anyone who's a bit overwhelmed with all of the different links and the different website and the Facebook group and all of that, I can imagine that it might be a bit of an overload. I have, in a minute, I'm going to pop one more link in the chat, which is a really quick feedback link. It's just a Survey Monkey with like 2 minutes of questions. And actually, once you have completed that, these links for our Facebook page, for our website, are also on the thank you page. So you can literally find it there if you can't find it in your chat anymore.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Oh, Aisling. Sorry, Aisling, was that a... No, that's fine. That was a premature goodbye, probably. So yeah, I'm just conscious of time and the fact that the sun is shining, and hopefully we want to get some fresh air and enjoy the sunshine on this lovely Saturday. So if there are no other questions at this point, I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank everyone for spending this time with us today and for your interest in the big lunch. I really hope that you can do something this year, because like I say, it's so important, and you'll have so much fun. So the main part, I guess the main thing thing I want you to remember is that this is just, it's just great fun. Otherwise, you know, why would we be doing it? So yeah, please let us know how you get on. And yeah, Lucy, anything else you want to?
Just thank you to you, and also to Hannah, and thank you to everybody for joining again, as Laura said. Yeah, Laura is always inspiring when she talks about the big lunch. So if you weren't sure, or you weren't convinced before, hopefully you feel like it's yeah, something that you'd really like to do now, and there are easy ways that you can get involved. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your days and weekends, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Still waving. I'm just going to wave. I'm just going to keep waving. Bye, Jonathan. Bye, Zoe.
Bye, Zoe.
I've got the first survey response in order.
Well done, Laura.
Well done, ladies. Oh, you're still recording. Does that matter?
Oh, no, I can stop that.